Hey, welcome back to Shadow Shorts. My name is Jeff Echols. I'm a senior advisor and the head of marketing at Shadow Partners. And today I am joined by a friend of mine, Evan Troxel. Evan is the architectural community director for the tectApp. He's also the host of the Peopleverse. We'll probably touch on that real quickly. And the Troxel podcast, which is TRXL. If you're interested in innovation and digital in the AEC world, you definitely need to check out the Troxel podcast. He's also the co-host of the Archispeak podcast and has been for quite a long time. So, Evan, thanks for joining me
hmm
today. Um, that's an awful lot of podcasts. It's an awful lot of content, um,
Yes.
and so that's this is just old hat for you to join me and jump in on conversations like this.
Happy to be here, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. When we were talking about doing having this conversation, I asked you, what's top of mind? What are you seeing as you look out across the architecture landscape, the AEC landscape? You look out across innovation. You're involved with a digital product, if we can describe it that way, in the tech
hmm
app.
hmm
And I said, what's a problem that you see that needs to be solved? And you talked about, we're drowning in data, and digital fatigue is a real thing. So what what does digital fatigue mean,
hmm
and where does it come from?
Yeah, technology fatigue, digital fatigue, app fatigue. I think all of these are synonymous. And it's really just what I'm hearing from the architectural community. And so it's not necessarily a personal opinion, although I do feel like this sometimes. I think I'm echoing what I'm hearing from
Hmm.
architects everywhere, which is like there's so many tools and there's so much complexity in in managing the building process, the design process, that it's like seriously another one, right? And so there's a lot of innovation happening, but the adoption is very, it's at a way lower level than
Right.
the innovation curve. Innovation's exponential. Adoption, as we've seen the McKinsey graph since forever ago, decades, is just staying rather flat,
Hmm.
productivity wise, efficiency wise. And I think that just has a lot to do with there's always higher and higher requirements, or maybe these are just set by ourselves, but of what we're putting into our projects. And so it doesn't feel like we're making a lot of progress. And so I think that all of that kind of leads up to this perfect storm of like, how do we keep up? How do we keep our heads above water? How do we make a profit? How do we stay competitive? Uh, with everything that's being bombarded, all of our senses are being bombarded with all of the tech that's going on out there, all of the data. And so you mentioned the Peopleverse podcast. I mean, uh, the kinds of things that we're really working on is getting back to foundations of, I think, something that technology is lacking in really coming up with better ways just to build on the intense amount, or the vast amount of wisdom and experience that exists in our industry, to help us get somewhere faster, because we are all drowning in a sea of data. I mean, you do a search for any building product, which is kind of our realm at tech, online, and you get millions upon millions of results, and it's, what am I supposed to do with that? I mean, this is what architects are saying. What am I supposed to do with that? So I don't know. There's a lot going on there. I mean, I'm already kind of rambling, but these are all the things that I'm hearing and synthesizing back into our approach of what we're doing at Tech and the Peopleverse, is getting back to kind of some of the fundamentals of the power of wisdom and relationships as a baseline to build technology upon and use it to further what those fundamentals can actually do for us in the short term.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, I had this conversation last week. We were actually talking about it before we went live here. With all the tools that are out there, as you're saying, one of my questions for a person that I was talking to is, as an an architecture firm or an AE firm, or whatever it is that you do, whatever your organization is, um, would you rather, right? Because we have a lot of boutique tools. Hey, here's this tool it's a generative design tool for
Hmm.
multifamily
Hmm. Hmm.
design, or here's this other AI driven, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's boutique. Maybe it is for our niche. Maybe it's not. But as we start to look around to do our work, this was my question last week, was would you rather have a bunch of little boutique tools, which mean now that you have this tech stack,
Hmm.
or would you rather have a behemoth that swallows up all of these tools? And there's no right or wrong answer to this, I don't think. Would you rather have this behemoth that swallows up all these tools and they become plugins to the main? And that led to a really interesting conversation. And at the end of the day, I think the answer was it depends.
Sure.
And it depends on what data is going in, what data is coming out, and what we're able to do with that, how we're able to work with it.
Yeah.
Which I think it brings it back around to an interesting aspect of what you're talking about in these types of conversations. I've talked to founders, I've talked to people that have tools that say, hey, we generate a lot of data, we gather a lot of data, but do we actually do anything
Right.
with the majority of that data? So maybe that's another tangent off of what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really interested to hear what those conversations are, because you're right, there are trade-offs either way when it comes to a bunch of bespoke little tools that we think about it in terms of a puzzle at tech,
Mm,
and there's very few people looking at it at the puzzle scale. A lot of people are
yeah,
looking at it as the individual puzzle piece scale,
right.
and I think we're seeing more innovation in the puzzle piece
Hmm.
approach than we are in the big behemoth approach, at least right now.
Yeah.
And not only that, but how long does it take to create the next behemoth? It takes a very long time, right? And so not only that, but architects won't adopt it until it's 10 or 15 years like proven, right?
Mhm.
This is
Right, right.
getting back to that idea of adoption versus innovation. So there's always this kind of lagging. Architecture is often the lagging indicator in these things. So um, as far as the data goes, it's an interesting conversation, because I think a lot of times you're right. We're just cramming data in and then not seeing the value in what we can do with it after the fact. Why? Because there's another project that we got to get started now, right? We're
Right.
kind of quote unquote done with this one,
Yeah.
move to the next. And this is all based on the business model of architecture as it has
Hmm.
been for a very long time, right? And so uh, the machine needs to keep running. The business model is what it is, and I say that in my famous podcasting air quotes, because it doesn't have to be that way, but that's
Right.
how we do decide to continue. And so it proliferates, and we don't look at the project continuing after we deliver it, where that data then becomes the basis of study. And interesting conversation I was having with my co-host of ArcaSpeak, Cormac Phelan, the other day when we were touring the Autodesk R&D facility in San Francisco at the AIA conference, and they were talking about this innovation lab and prototypes. Like they're making these prototype products, and every building is a prototype for the most
Mm.
part when it comes to architecture. It's a one-off, and it's based on ideas that were synthesized, and this thing was produced to solve problems for the owners or the clients of those clients potentially. And the architect is rarely involved in that after delivery and actually how it works and how that it moves forward. And again, it goes back to that business model. Well, that's not our business model, is to continue that conversation. We may do an after occupancy survey, but then what? I
Right.
mean, I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I don't want to let you go until, I mean, you mentioned tectApp
Hmm.
earlier, and you touched briefly on what you're doing there, how you're bringing these things together. So take a minute to tell us a little bit about tech, what it is, and your methodology, the problem that you're solving, and how you're solving it.
Yeah, I mean the process of, oh well, first let me just set the foundation. Our buildings are made of products. Period.
Mhm.
Building products, and architects and engineers and other design professionals on the design team orchestrate this amazing combination of products, and sometimes that's unique and sometimes it isn't, and it kind of depends on all, everything that goes into a building. And the selection process is completely broken. I mean, getting back to that idea of being drowning, we're drowning in data. Like I said, do a search for a building product and you get millions of results.
Mm.
Now what? Like, am I even
Right,
asking the right question? That's kind of the, like, if I'm going down a new avenue when it comes to an innovative building product, how do I even know if it's if I'm going down the right path? How do I
right.
know if it's in my cost ballpark? How do I know it's going to hit my performance needs in this building? How do I know any of those things? Uh, the answer is you talk to an expert. That's the
Mm.
answer. And it's not going to be a 4 hour long Google search where I end up shopping for shoes. That's often what happens, right? And
Right,
so tech fundamentally connects people at the earliest stages of design, from the design team to the experts on the building product side who know more about their product category. And we say
right.
category because their product is not the focus, it's how it fits into an assembly, it's how it works with other pieces and parts of the building at the earliest stages of design so we can make better decisions sooner, because that is what is going to accelerate, we feel, the the quality of architecture in the built environment. And that's why this is a fundamental piece of the puzzle that a lot of technology is not solving for, is
Mm.
that, you don't have to, there's nothing to adopt here. You don't even have to learn a new tool. All you need to do is click a button and get in contact with a person. You already know how to talk to them. So the talent exists on both sides of this equation. We're the neutral connector between those two sides of the table.
There you have it, the Switzerland of building products and architects. I
Yes.
love it. If you want to know more about the Tech app, tech.com, the URL is in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now. And if you enjoy these types of conversations where we get to go deep on a particular topic, Evan and I were talking before we went live. We're working right now on Shadow Summit. It's the seventh annual Shadow Summit. It'll take place in October 24th through 26th in Atlanta. Shadowsummit.com. That website is under a revamp right now as we prepare for the summit. But one of my colleagues described, um, well, actually, two different colleagues with two different descriptions. Shadow Summit, according to our CEO, KP Reddy, 2023 will be Cliff Notes version of everything that's happened in terms of innovation in the built environment 2023, and a preview of what you should be planning for and budgeting for in terms of innovation for 2024. So that's important. It's important to understand that. We're going to cover innovation. We're going to talk about what's happening, what's important, what's impactful, and also look towards the future there. But another colleague um, said that, what really happens in this purposefully small, intimate setting is we dig deep into conversations, topics just like these that Evan and I are having right now, and we geek out on those conversations. So if you like these types of conversations, if you want to go even deeper on digital fatigue, et cetera, things like robotics and 3D printing and all of the innovations that we're seeing across the built environment, Shadow Summit may be for you. So shadowsummit.com is a place where you can find out more about that. So Evan, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you for doing this, and super interesting topic and perspective. And I think I think we're all suffering for digital fatigue right now in different ways, certainly, whether
Yep.
it's buying shoes or it is figuring out that tech stack and what to do with the data. So thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you out there, thanks for joining us again for a Shadow Short. Try to do this every day at noon Eastern. We're still in startup mode, getting the ball rolling here. So check us out here on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Twitter, and we'll see you for the next Shadow Short.